tired. Ah, welcome everybody. Welcome to the DSC show live in a basement near you. Other than that, we are reacting to Whatculture top 10 ways WWE isn't for you anymore. Over to the extent of probably talking to the old school fan of why the WWE fan base and how the product isn't for you anymore. Now, if you guys, of course, my stream was like an hour long. What's up, Sin? Uh, my hour long stream, of course, is going to primarily focus on just this specific video. There was an article that I went over with Destructor and YTC, just shitting on this. We're going to shit on this properly by me reacting to the top 10 reasons why WWE isn't for you anymore. Gareth, that looks like he probably molested a girl with Adam Blompied. It never mattered what you think. Now, I'm not supporting to the extent of piped in noise. WWE has been guilty of this for years. And to the extent of taking your immersion off, I don't think it makes a difference over the fans unless they're really paying attention to the piped in noise. And to the extent that that plays a factor in crowd reaction, I do feel like that's a problem. But there's plenty other ways that the show can't be for you. Yeah, Whatculture have a weird ass taste because over to their dick sucking of Whatculture and of AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, they have no extent to talk about the failing business of most wrestling feds when they haven't been hot since 2016 to 17, and most of them was overshooting their shot trying to draw with jobber feds and aging names like Del Rio. I'm sorry, El Patron. He sounds like a liquor that you got in your local liquor store. Sorry, El Patron sounds like a drink. And of course, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio when he was released from WWE at the time. And they still couldn't even draw over a dime trying to get, and then being later on called Defiant Wrestling. So they lost less of the draw when they came from a notable wrestling YouTube channel to call themselves into a local jobber English fed. And they have the time to shit over many wrestling feds around the business. Guess what? CZW ain't shit, but I think they're still in business over 20 years. Whatculture barely even lasted 5 years. The audience thoughts and opinions. It was earlier than 2020, guys. Come on. They've had piped in noises since before the Thunderdome. I'm shocked this is taking them to realize that. There has, over a lack of attendance, you guys notice the tarps you see around the lack of WWE attendance. They've been using over piped in noises to cut over when the fans weren't interested or they weren't popping over tag team spots, or when it comes to like Roman Reigns, you think there wasn't piped in muted noise when he was getting booed out of the building after WrestleMania. It was either 32 or 33 when he beat The Undertaker. So that's to the extent of WWE, of course, using their technical techniques to try to silence out the crowd for the safety of their presence on TV. So they think that this is just recent. They think WWE isn't for you anymore, like right now. They are stupid. They haven't been hot on TV since 2001. WWE been over to the extent of decline for several years. What's going on, Sonic? Uh-huh. They do that for every other match. Fans have no investment into wrestling, WWE in general. The hope of Black and Gold coming back means that WWE isn't for you. They're average at least 500,000 viewers, just the heart and soul of WWE. Obviously, the core WWE fan base comes out of a developmental show that average even below half of what SmackDown gets at its worst. So, yes, if you guys didn't watch Black and Gold at NXT, you're the real WWE. You aren't the real WWE fans. I'm just saying. Nothing much. Just did a video on Patrick Ewing. Oh yeah, you sent me a link on that. So just understand if you understand why there's been a decline in the WWE, it's obvious off the loss of Black and Gold. And people always bring over Black and Gold NXT all because of the insane jobber rip-off Ring of Honor work rate shit. And that barely has anything to translate over to the major wrestling audience, or at least a major casual audience when it comes to most of these guys getting over. That's why most of these guys fail to flourish around over to the top of the card. And when they do, it's over a temporary span of time, like they do with Finn Balor, like they do with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Nakamura, all these guys that we're prodigally familiar with, that's still in the presumptive mid-card. They're not in any of the casual sphere because they don't target the casual sphere. And sometimes when they do try to get over with their pure character, it only takes like a gradual amount of time, or they're still stuck in the mid card. That's the thing. And NXT has no way to presume that because they're only in a setting. They air their TV shows on a freaking college in a small arena where it can fit at least a couple of 5,000. So they're literally smaller than the Impact Zone. And over the time of the Impact Zone, they were drawing around 2 million. With more star power and having the X division. So NXT Black and Gold, the golden era, quote unquote, of NXT, that's the reason if fans watch WWE. It's developmental, by the way. We got shifted out of our OVW era of John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and Batista. I'm gonna stop watching WWE because OVW sucks. What? I don't know people like this. You guys know people like this? It's still pro wrestling. What's the difference with NXT pro wrestling from WWE pro wrestling? They wrestle nearly the same, except there's more storylines involved in the main roster. You're not really exemplifying anything except you just like NXT because it's just something from the norm from WWE that they have lesser names that just do more in-ring shit that you can barely remember. The most whenever people even recognize like NXT Black and Gold is fucking that Bayley and Banks match. And now Banks is out the company and out the official roster. And Bayley always tears her MCL every goddamn year looking like Jay Leno. Like, nobody wants to see that. And even when they do, they're like 30-minute bog matches. Like, no one can tell me the iconic spot. Like, people can tell me what happened in Santino in the 2012 Royal Rumble. More they can tell me what happened in the third match with Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano on TakeOver Alabama. They're saying that they're profiting off ripping off Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. You mean a smaller scale California indie that always do their day tournaments over on in sweatshop gym places every goddamn year? You're saying I'd rather watch NXT 2.0 if that's the case. They have hot women, a guy that actually looks like he can beat you up at a Braun Breaker, and a lot more character. There's a lot more personality. I'm sure that I hear that NXT 2.0 doesn't do much quality-wise to stir itself out of the norm, but most of its job is just to make sure that these guys can develop their presence over on TV a lot better. Not because they want it to be the hottest third show on WWE. I don't think Vince really cares if NXT gets over 1 million viewers with lesser, inexperienced wrestlers that don't have a household name as any of the guys from Raw and SmackDown. Vince was competing. I hope I hope AEW understands this. You were trying to compete with a lesser brand. You were competing. This is like Ring of Honor trying to get as much ratings with WWE ECW back in 06. Not like anybody. I'm not saying that like that's a terrible thing. Of course, ECW returning on major television was of course a big thing because there was still a cult following. There was still a very supportive fan base. Nobody shot in fucking black and gold whenever an old NXT wrestler like Finn Balor comes around with his entrance. They're probably doing his flashing pose, trying to do 2,700 of his drop kicks. Whenever you see Tommy Dreamer Raven do something extreme or Sandman, you shout out ECW because ECW actually had a presence. It actually had an identity while having the work rate shit like any other Fed. They pull themselves apart with actual characters, a great audience, and just amazing characters. They were like any other Fed, but they actually had personality, and you could actually remember the names. I can't tell you who was the top 10 anything in whatever Pro Wrestling Guerrilla was, bro. I don't think Vince concerns himself with losing to AEW with his developmental. That's depressing. Their thing wasn't when the fuck was NXT ever progressed to ever trying to sell to the younger demographic. WWE goes for a family-wide audience for more casual viewers. Sure, I don't like of course everybody and their mother that still watches or used to watch wrestling. I really hate the PG presence of WWE, but that's of course to grab a more broader audience while trying to still save face for the modern way of media. So you can understand a bit of why WWE is PG, but they can still do stuff that's not PG if you guys know what I'm saying. Like Total Drama Island was airing back in the day around like '09, and it was like having like teenagers get stripped, making out, uh getting into disrespectful pranks, literally treating themselves like a cartoon reality show. I think they had if you guys remember Heather from that show, literally the most notable part was a stick, literally a branch taking up her shirt, her crop top, and ripping off her shirt, showing her tits that were blurred out. Of course that's going to catch the eye of younger audiences. What you want people like Piper Nivens, I'm sorry, Dewdrop just on TV? You're telling me a lot more people are going to watch a lot of these females if they were all built like Dewdrop, not like Gigi Dobbins, Mandy Rose, fuck it, Naomi, even though certain people call her ugly. Like, WWE has been doing this for decades. They've been always trying to sell sex. Every other show medium does it. All because you be like these females or with their in-ring skill, and they still Tony Storm still does OnlyFans because she knows what actually gets the bag. I don't blame her. Sure, that's not gonna find her trustworthy husband in the future if he knows about this, but you can understand why. It's because sex sells. Every other TV show does it, from the younger demographic of TV shows to old mature movies. So let's just hear the rest of this point. super workers. He says super workers. Like, that's an accomplishment to have. If anybody calls you, and probably this is advice for anybody in the wrestling business, if anybody's calling you a super worker or nothing else about you, but you're a great worker, they're saying they ain't shit about you, then you can wrestle. Just that. That's as worse as like, well, I like the guy's personality. Nothing, no other sincere qualities about you make you somebody that they want to be friends with, or somebody that they want to date, or somebody they want to fuck. It's the same explanation of why you're not going to make the main roster. Honestly, if that was the case, Cole O'Reilly, Fish, and Strong would have got picked up immediately because they're such great workers. Chavo Guerrero is such a great worker. He should have been world champion. He could have beaten Edge, Mysterio, Undertaker, realistically, just because he's a great worker. You're not going to be an NBA superstar all because you're a great athlete. It's because you're a great basketball player. So please, they're all around stars. Of course, Nikita Lyons. She looks ugly as fuck. I would smash, though. Well, because NXT targets more of the mature audience. You see like guys around their 40s and 50s watching NXT. You're not seeing really the younger demographic. You think WWE hasn't always had a surplus of content before? Sunday Night Heat, Velocity, Raw, SmackDown. You think that's already, like, Velocity was an hour long of TV, so was Sunday Night Heat. Plus, Raw back in the day was 2 hours, and SmackDown was 2 hours. That's at least above 6 hours of content in a weekly structure, including superstars that showed up as a weekly C show around 2008. So WWE has always did the quantity over quality when it comes to displaying more over like their TV shows. Like when they had NXT, Superstar, Saturday Morning Slam, SmackDown, Raw. You think that's already too much wrestling? And was televised show? So what made WWE so different right now to what they are from back then? They have always done that. Shotgun Saturday Night. You know how many C shows WWE had over their surplus of still airing a primetime TV show? You guys are not really making a difference. This is already shit that's been going on for years. Austin Theory sucks because he tries to be annoying and he tries to get heat. And I don't want to see him win. Oh my god, he's doing his job. Uh-huh. That is a sincere problem. How's that supposed to like take off the fans? The the regular WWE fan, yes, whenever we're paying attention over a televised product, we don't get rewarded over paying attention. That is a problem. My thing is they're not doing stuff to make every episode memorable. That should be more of a concern than or making it more episodic. You're doing weekly televised show. You're not doing just a basic event that's gonna just be in your local cafeteria. WWE has an issue of not making any of the shows feel more episodic, and that's a reason why it isn't for you anymore. Because 20 years ago, every episode felt like you sadly missed out on a great event. They give you recaps of every storyline happening around that time or the major ones happening around the main event scene. Everybody felt like they had an entangling storyline and an interaction. It's like missing an episode of The Sopranos. Nobody wants to be like, that was a great gunfight. I give it a 3.5 stars out of 5. Christopher shot that guy in the neck. And we go over a 10-minute exploration of how a 2-minute gunfight goes great. Like, come on. So, how does you mean when you mean the alternative? You just mean AEW. You are making only one example. It was bashing sports entertainment. The whole storyline is that their one-off storyline because Chris Jericho was there with his all-white faction is just bashing over the whole sports entertainment shit. How is that something that's sports entertainment? Them just doing a faction storyline, just bashing it. And by the way, when they all mean alternative, they have to mean competition. They just mean AEW. That's the gayest thing I've ever. Why do they have to use their own wording for it? Like they're gonna lose royalty checks off that. Every Fed uses fireballs. When's the last time you barely see WWE do fireballs other than that Fiend storyline? TNA overuses fireballs, but they're not going to bring that up because TNA right now isn't as big as they were 10 years ago. There has been an overusage of fireballs in GCW, AEW, TNA, Impact, same thing, whatever. Hardcore Feds, and Jericho is just overusing his girdle every time he has to sell a ring injury, rib injury with his fake fat ass, coming around just making like, I'm the sports entertainment, so we're the heels while we're the real wrestlers of a mixed match faction. No legitimate storylines, no personal gifts except we know who we're targeting. That's it. So how's that sports entertainment? It's supposed to be entertaining. AEW shows no reason for me to watch them weekly. Chris Jericho's the only person who displays personality in his whole faction. I understand that's the gist, but nobody acts like they have personality. Not the 2.0 jobbers. Daniel Garcia is just a work rate, technical jobber horse, and Jake Hagar is still there because he's white. Daniel Garcia probably looks like he got butt fucked in Juvie. Like, come on. Most of these guys look unshaven, barely get much of a physique. Chris Jericho is 60 years old and has more abs than the 4 other members in his faction. That's insane. He just had to transplant his back fat into his stomach to make abs. So anybody gets the genre of sports entertainment. How are they doing sports entertainment different? Sports entertainment is just a genre of wrestling for them. AEW, they just just said that AEW shits on their sports entertainment by just making a faction that is sports entertainment. Yeah, how's that supposed to get more fans to watch AEW, by the way? How's that working? Explain that to me. What is the art of pro wrestling? What's your style of pro wrestling? What culture? Your style of what culture of wrestling is failing to even keep a Fed for 5 years. Just, just you have to tell me the exemplary art of the technical mastery of selling the elbow for like 2 seconds and then immediately doing a cutter and then going for a super kick while still doing a headlock 10 minutes in. Like, you guys don't know the style of wrestling is fucking subjective, just like any other form of entertainment in a medium, just like music, just like mainstream rap. There's going to be more shit that people are going to watch than the alternative. More people are going to listen to probably Future than they're probably going to listen to Logic. That's just our reality, Kings. And you just bringing the example of a genre, just the style of the TV show, to one storyline on a alternative. You said alternatives, by the way. You only bring up one example of your alternatives. So there's no other show that's in the same level of WWE. Thanks for proving my point. By the way, I gotta drink Pepsi. So we've done pose downs before, and we have surprise pins of a championship. I think people would rather watch that than a 20-minute opening match on AEW. What's PLE identity? So over the stream, if anybody can explain this, what the hell does PLE identity even means televised wise? So just just a problem on CGI. Yeah, this just sounds like nitpicks. Yeah, if you just said a lack of interesting stage design, I think a lot more people would relate what culture. You think most of the fan base know what the fuck a PLE means? Like, just say, oh, remember the fist on SmackDown? Remember the amazing stages we had on every monthly pay-per-view? Just the presence of a show just felt bigger. Just felt like we were in a different setting every time. You would have said that, more people would have agreed with you on that. You had to just try to say PLE, the big TVs. Like, I understand your plea, but come on. You think the audience didn't complain? What the fuck do you mean they're brainwashed core audience? Less of them are there. There isn't WWE fans I hear of doing death threats like AEW fans or any other weirdo jobber fed that supports somebody named uh, Blake Austin and say that well, he survives being cyberbullied working in a 20 seated event. This is a major problem, though. No fucking shit. They're publicly traded. Anything that's publicly traded is always going to be about the brand. It's even been like that around the time of the Attitude Era when they were surging to be more publicly branded. To the extent of most of these wrestling marks not knowing much about the business, most of these wrestlers are interchangeable. That sucks to say. The same thing for a fucking Home Depot. Home Depot's not going to regret firing me. Home Depot's gonna regret losing a sale of a product more they are about firing probably 4 people in one day. Because that's not what makes their bread and butter. We're just the ones that keep the waterfall afloat. Anybody that can still work on that waterfall can either be replaced. That's just how it is. I hate to say it, but that's how it works. Okay? You think they have it over the record CD, action figures, film promotions, DVDs, documentaries? You think most of these weren't, brand selling? Hulk Hogan wasn't brand selling. Because he wants to be at WrestleMania. Who doesn't? They had Booker T and Edge just fight over fucking shampoo promotion commercial to get their WrestleMania moment. Of course, being at WrestleMania is the biggest thing in your career. Who doesn't want to be there? Yes, because that's how they're going to make their money, Whatculture. They're publicly traded. Their whole shit is to get money. Sure, quality-wise, it sucks. But that's how it is. They have to sell that shit so they can actually garner money. These are the same people that thought Orange Cassidy was gimmick of the year. I'm sorry, what was the problem? It's a moments company. Yes, it is about the moments. And before I hear explanations, then a fanboying. I'm just anti-smart. I understand WWE had their problems, and yes, Whatculture made a few decent points over to the extent, but being like a publicly traded company shouldn't be profiting or not trying to sell as much as WWE is to begin with, because it's a household name. Whenever people reference kicking someone's ass, being violent, or being larger than life, what's up, awesome kid? They're going to reference WWE. That's how it is brand-wise, and WWE would like to keep it that way. Nobody references any other, no one's gonna be like, I'm gonna Rainmaker a nigga, in a rap song. No one's gonna bring that up. Ever. I'm gonna give this nigga the Judas effect. What's a Judas? And saying that WWE is in a moments company? Yeah, obviously I remember that time Hulk Hogan gave Andre the Giant a headlock. I remember the 20 other moves other than his body slam and leg drop. John Cena just lifting 2 men over his shoulders. Man, no one cared about the moment. Nobody cared about Shawn Michaels' sweet chin music on Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24. People only cared about Chavo Guerrero losing in 8 seconds. Fuck this moments company. We don't care about moments. We don't care. What? So it's just a nitpick. When they said moments company, they say, oh, we just hate the wording WrestleMania moment. That's a nitpick. That's not a reason why people stop watching. It's annoying, Like the time they like always whenever they put a hashtag everywhere or they try to be like WWE tries to trend, you can understand why they do it, but it's stupid. But that's not a reason why like tens of thousands of fans leave. That's not. I wouldn't even mind if they put the PG branding ruins the show. They're saying that WWE shouldn't be publicly traded. WWE shouldn't have any sex appeal for the younger or the more impressionable audience that are watching the show for the first time. WWE shouldn't be focusing on trying to create moments so people can remember. Absolutely not. Really? This is the Fed that can barely even last calling themselves Whatculture Wrestling for like 3 years. Like, get the fuck out of my face. Uh-huh. They take it like that's the only moment at WrestleMania this year. Oh, Cody Rhodes coming back. Of course, that overshadowed everything happening around the show. It's not like Stone Cold coming back to wrestle Kevin Owens was at WrestleMania 38. Like they just skimmed over that moment all because Cody Rhodes was an indie darling. So you're saying all because of the big moment, WWE does nothing to capitalize later on it. Cody Rhodes is still getting major television time, and so is Nakamura when he was IC champion. These guys can't capitalize over the time they're given because they have a lack of skill of TV presence. And you just blame upon WWE all because they want to capture a moment so there can be something that measurable, memorable about it. That makes zero sense. And you could have just said 10 ways WWE isn't for you recently or right now. They're saying this like this is universal. This dislike, like I feel like the dislike button should be visible so you can see the half-asses or half-hearted attempts over a video actually exclaiming itself, so you can see something to avoid. Big meaty man slapping meat. These are grown ass men. They said dream matches are dead, and they put Lashley and Gunter, and it's like big meaty men slapping meat. You can obviously tell that most of the men in that work there are straight. Uh, there's something not right. Who just says big meaty men slapping meat? Huh? Does that sound good to you? You just saw two tall big men, and you said two big meaty men slapping meat. We know that you guys never do a top 10 female favorite wrestling because you would probably bring up more men than you will women because you guys aren't being straight up, if you know what I'm saying. What culture's a bunch of weirdos, dog? Uh, Now, trying to ruin a dream match, that could be better. You guys said dream matches are dead. Why don't you guys just say they ruin dream matches? Word your titles better. Because this sounds like less of people, less people watching WWE, and this sounds more of people just more of your nitpicks. If that sounds better, because there's a lack of star power. Nobody wants to see another fucking Styles and Nakamura fight because that would be in the mid card. That John Cena and The Rock. You think how many people were actually hearing, like, oh, John Cena, Undertaker, below Nakamura and Styles, and then they compare that to Rock and Cena Mania 28. Now I can understand this because, of course, WrestleMania later on, they want to redo that magic because there was a lack of big draws that can actually be as big as Cena and Rock at the time. Even though it sucks, but you can understand why they still had to do that. And that it did affect WrestleMania 29. We're getting a lesser pay-per-view buy than WrestleMania 28 because Mania 28 was a year-long build, doing TVs involving themselves in pay-per-views, press events, live talk show interviews. Like, everybody and their mom knows who Rock and Cena is. And they at least do this on another WrestleMania. Nakamura and Styles they can do on TV. Anytime. That's not a dream match. Rock and Austin, you can put that in any other pay-per-view. Just a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania. Or hell, you can even put that in a Royal Rumble and a lot of more people would watch that. You put Nakamura and Styles on TV, that's not even going to increase the pay-per-view buy to 10,000. They're only going to do it once. It's called fucking kayfabe. They literally just describe kayfabe. It's hard to separate the real-life drama from the product. So they literally just displayed they can't understand a work from a shoot. These are marks. I paid that bitch $12 million. I bet this whole thing with Vince is gonna die under, but it's gonna be a gradual slowing point of Vince ever. It's like the same thing with that Deshaun Watson controversy that's happening around the NFL. If anybody pays attention, over plead cases coming over 20, of course, involving several victims of Deshaun Watson sexually assaulting them in recent memory. But in that standpoint, one of the victims' children came up and actually said that the lawyer was setting up Deshaun Watson and lying to the court. So stuff like this is probably going to be a gradual decline. I'm not going to say that's going to happen fast, but it's going to happen in a certain amount of time. We just don't know yet. And the NFL is actually trying to probably exile Deshaun Watson out for the whole season for a PR move to keep them to save face, to feel like there's actually some tolerance level policy that they can still afflict over these allegations, even if they're false. So the NFL can still save face. The same thing could be done to Vince. He's just not going to be that much of an on-screen presence that more or publicly. That could be the same way. So I'm just setting that up for you guys. I don't think SmackDown and Raw's rating has really changed since Banks and Naomi have been off TV. Because last time we recently discussed over headlines and televised ratings. This is while Banks and Naomi were off TV. Raw drew the most TV rate. Like, you barely see a 1.9 televised rating of Raw after WrestleMania. You hear them at least peaking around 2.1, 2.0. They drew 1.9, and this is near SummerSlam. At SmackDown, they always average around 1.8, 1.9, or go up to the 2 million range whenever Roman Reigns is there. So, yeah. And what did I say before? If any of these women, any of these four horse-faced women leave, nothing will change the show. Nothing will change the product. Nothing will change the programming because they do nothing to set themselves apart to actually get the fans they need. And I was right. Y'all can call it hating. You can call me a sexist, misogynist, rapist. I was right. So I'm just going to try to sip some tea in your hood. So that's all I'm gonna sip some fucking tea. Rest in peace to XXX. So right now we're literally at the conclusion that they just can't separate the reality. So they're saying that the news at WWE is recent news, not the steroid allegations. Benoit homicide murder, uh, bankruptcy, you know, political political views, alignment, or sexual allegations involving most of the wrestlers over in NXT UK. Nope. It's just we hate Vince, and we hated Vince getting rid of Sasha Banks and Naomi. He's a rapist pig, and of course the NXT Black and Gold is awesome. He's probably going to be known for fingering Tamina, and still he's probably going to do the Hammer Time dance on Raw next week. You you think over the steroid scandal, there hasn't been stuff that separated life, reality from real life for WWE. You could have just put this reasons right now WWE is struggling. Not how does bad news for a publicly traded company, like you could say the same thing with the NFL. Are you sure Deshaun Watson allegations is going to stop people from watching pro football? Huh? Over the Colin Kaepernick mess, there wasn't tens of millions of people still watching the Super Bowl. You guys are not really putting up any points. And I'm sick of this shit because you guys have like 2 million undeserved subs. All because people are too lazy to unsubscribe from probably the hundreds they already sub to. And you guys barely even average 200,000 viewers. So that's only that you're only getting carried on from the former employees you guys used to have around like 2017. Well, only Simon Miller being the only guy that averaged around 100,000 viewers. You guys are charismaless twats that are jobbers. And whenever you guys even bring up something involving the alternative, that barely even sucks around 70,000 people. I hate Whatculture. Over to the extent that I only keep you guys aboard because getting wrestling news isn't that good or frequent or in good quality because Wrestling Observer sucks. Like, if you guys ever hear an hour-long podcast involving Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer, that's probably the same to a doctor reading your results that's suffering from Down syndrome. While just coming from a fight that he recently lost. That's to the extent of how dull people that talk about wrestling can be. Like, it's the same thing if you had Dave Meltzer talking about the recent Super Bowl. Well, uh, we had a football game. Cooper Kupp caught 25-yard catch. to the end zone. And of course, Eli Apple. Like, you don't want to hear people talk about that. They shouldn't be talking about something that's entertainment like it's a fucking test that you failed and they're going over the answers you messed up. They should be talking about it like they feel immersed, or they're talking about it like you watched the episode 2 at the same night. If I hear Wrestling Observer talk about anything, it feels like my doctor reading my test results of me failing my physical. They don't talk about wrestling like you talk about wrestling, or how possibly when you were a kid, when you were like, yeah, so that was crazy what happened the last week, of course. We have plenty of news for you. Like you don't hear that energy, dog. It's dull. Whatculture, and I feel like there should be a certain amount of consistency. And yes, I'm guilty of this too. To the extent of over the previous week when I was averaging around 1,200 viewers, while I'm only at 181, that's pretty impressive. Whatculture at least averages around, well, let's sum it up to at least 25,000 viewers, up to 50,000 viewers. They got 10 million subs. F smart culture indeed. Thank you, Lewis. But they're saying over this entire WWE isn't for you. It's why they don't like WWE. And let me share screen this right. I don't think I can share screen because I'm in a different. I had to push this to a different window. Oh, give me 2 seconds and let me see if I can do this. These are grown ass men. These are men that you don't want to go to the beer with. You're possibly the people that are like, yo, shut the fuck up and stop talking about that fake shit before I slap you with my weakest hand. Simon Miller's the only person that goes into the gym. These guys are possibly in their 30s and they probably look like they just turned 19. All looking like alleged pedophiles in a nerd con. Over to the extent of going over this video right here that you could tell I'm on the cursor of because the preview showing. It's because they dislike it. If that's the extent, they would be talking about the results of what it's doing to the product or the fans complaining about it. They just go over why they don't like WWE. They don't like the sex appeal. They don't like that they're branding to make sure that they're still relevant. They're not liking that they focus on moments that just the in-ring. And they don't like that they took their beloved NXT Black and Gold away. Nothing about that shows why the regular WWE fan has left the product. Most of that is not displaying why WWE fans don't watch WWE anymore. That's a joke to me. And so is this channel. Thanks for watching the DST show. Hopefully I go live again probably later next week or around SummerSlam. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you had a great 4th of July. Thanks for watching.